Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pascal Dennis Music Podcast. I am here once again with Pascal Dennis and David Logan. Welcome, guys. It's nice to be here again.
Thank you.
First talk of the new year, and we are going to be talking about many different songs. And we want to start off the conversation with some of the epics of the first album, the Crazy Angels album, which was the first album which you two produced together. Pascal, you wanted to tell us about this story and also some details about the songs Ballad of the Red Sea and Aristotle Way.
Thanks, Levi. And good to see you both. So much appreciate our time together. So Crazy Angels is the first record that David and I made after reconnecting.
Yeah, we kind of have a dirty little secret that we don't tell anyone. I don't know, Pascal, should we tell the world?
Sure.
Well, so we actually did an album 27 years ago. Our first, that's really technically our first technical album, but
Right.
we're calling that Ground Zero. So album zero, that's
Right.
where it all began. So we're not really, so yeah, Aristotle's Way, Ballad of the Red Sea is off of our first album called Crazy Angels. But yeah, we technically had an album before 27 years ago. But we're just splitting hairs. Go on, Pascal.
We will remake album zero in probably in 3 or 4 years. We've got a whole bunch of other music that we want to release, but we are going to remake Blue Bedroom at some point. I'm looking forward to that. In any event, album one is Crazy Angels. And just a bit of background, I grew up with Crazy Angels. My family are migrants. My grandfather came to America 100 years ago. I think one of the many levels David and I connect on is our family history. David, your grandfather, I believe, also came through Ellis Island in New York City.
On both sides.
So our experience and the experience of many people in North America is immigration, migration, and the trauma of leaving the familiar. And often you're destitute and dirt poor. You don't speak the language. You have no skills, and yet you have to make a life. And so that makes people crazy. So the people I grew up with, and I think, David, again, you had this experience, they are crazy angels. There's something beautiful and pure about them, but they're crazy because they don't have therapy. They don't have counseling. They don't have, education and the means to make sense of their traumas. For me, if I look at Eastern Orthodox churches, you see these icons of these anguished, insane saints, and they're like my family. I see them all, or if you look in paintings by Caravaggio, you see crazy angels. Anyhow, that's what this record is about. Fundamentally, it's about my coming of age on a personal level, but also it's about my family's experience over 100 years. And the album begins with Aristotle Way and ends with the song called The Ballad of the Red Sea. And both are epics. They're, I think, about 8 minutes long. And they are both the result of almost hallucinogenic images coming to me, and which I was not able to make sense of for decades, to be very honest. So Aristotle Way is set in Salonika, which is an ancient port. It was ancient Greek, Roman, Phoenician, Islamic, Turkish, Byzantine port. And now, interestingly enough, it's been bought by the Chinese, the latest rising empire. And I was in the heart of Salonika, which is Aristotle Way and Aristotle Plaza, where all the business of the city happens. And all these images came to me. It was like some kind of unearthly experience. It's like my ancestors were speaking to me. So I wrote pages and pages and pages in my notebook, and it took decades for me to make sense of these images. And then I had the same experience at the bottom of the Sinai Peninsula. Sharm el Sheikh, the Bay of the Sheikh, not far from Mount Zion and St. Catherine's Monastery. Again, another hallucinogenic kind of geography and environment. And I had the same experience. All these images flooded into me, but I couldn't make sense of them. But finally, with the pandemic, I had time to polish the images and to work with Mr. Logan and our wonderful band. And I raised the level of my game, and I was able to complete these songs. So to start with Aristotle Way, it's the story of my family, and it's an epic. It's multiple verses, and the imagery is from my unconscious, and it took a long time to settle and make sense. So I encourage young songwriters not to rush songs. Some songs that are deeply personal require you to delve into your unconscious, and it takes time for that to settle and to coalesce into something meaningful. I hit the pause button there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's very, very well said. And yeah, sometimes things, especially in the world of art, it takes time, And
did you know, like, in the past podcast we talked about the fact that the song Aristotle Way was basically finished, and then Pascal told you, David, that you have to add a verse, right?
Oops. Yeah,
like,
and
mea culpa.
And if I could add, it was the verse that unlocked everything. It was one of the verses I wrote at the end when everything made sense. And I'll pass the baton to David.
Oh no, I mean, that's, I guess my advice to young producers would be flexible and always let your artist feel that they can do as they please. And if they're doing anything that's, destructive to the process, also don't be afraid to say something. But yeah, with this particular song, I mean, it was such a powerful song. And like we were finished. The song was done. And I believe we had 5 verses and you added a 6th. Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, he just sort of comes in. He's like, listen, David, but I have another verse. Is that going to be a problem? And I'm just like, absolutely not, man. Don't worry about it. Now, from the production standpoint, I very carefully crafted these arrangements so that, we were building each time. So, and that by the time you get to the 5th verse, you're hearing all the instrumentation, you're hearing all the arrangement. It's full. You've taken your time sort of stepping up. So as a producer, I had a unique problem, which is, all right, well, how do I go even further? Because I used all my good cards. They're all good cards were played. I went to the vicar and, all those good cards were played. So no, but it's true. I mean, I crafted it as a 5-verse song and very slowly kind of went up. And so then I thought to myself, well, how do I take it further? And the answer turned out to be, going backwards, literally just stripping everything back for the 5th of the very large and lush 5th verse then became the nothing, like almost nothing verse. It really, really got stripped back. And then what used to be the 5th verse arrangement I'm talking about specifically, then became the arrangement of the 6th verse, which was, so when you go from verses 1 through 4, you're slowly building up. And then all of a sudden you get to a verse and everything drops out. And then that turned out to be the answer, was doing the opposite instead of building, just stripping back. But that, might be one of my favorite parts of the song now, where everything gets stripped out and it changed the emotion. Yeah.
What I love is the arrangement you chose is stripped down, as you said, except for this ethereal upper register pad and it feels like you're floating, and it's a transcendent feeling because the narrator makes sense of his experience periodically. And in the song, he goes up to this castle above the city, and there's this mystical vicar there who does a tarot reading for him. And the vicar reads his heart and tells him what is happening. And so, the tarot is like Rorschach cards and other psychological instruments, is a way of making visible what's inside you. So he has this tarot reading, and he has these revelations about himself, about his family. So this ethereal pad, stripped away of all ornamentation, is exactly what the song needed. So I was so grateful, David, for that, because it was so powerful. And then we were able to, to finish the song in the last verse in a really satisfying way. But to me, it was a miraculous moment to feel that.
I can't imagine the song any other way now. When I listen back, and it just turned out to be just what the song needed. So yeah. So, and that's the other thing, is that sometimes the unexpected from the artist that you're working with, when they throw you a curveball, you got to catch that ball. Or if you're the batter, you got to hit that ball. and that's what we did, and I wouldn't say I was like worried, but I definitely approached Pascal with a little bit of a heads up, like, all right, hey, listen, everything's going to get pulled out of the song, and it's not, I did that on purpose, and but he loved it, and because it works really well. And yeah, this idea of this pad coming in is actually introduced actually very early on in the song, and then used in various elements. And I believe the lyric I used it on was comical decay, which I just registered with me. I don't know why that. That's the thing I love about his lyrics, is that comical decay. I mean, like, who puts those two words together? I don't know, but I do know. Only Pascal would. But it's such a wonderful lyric, So that's where the pad first came in.
Yeah,
I think I could even play that if you like. But
yeah,
yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
awesome.
would you like that?
Yep, by all means.
Let's see. Can you guys hear? Or is that coming through? Great.
Yep.
Okay. That very high magical pad, and then this is where the first part of the arrangement comes together. So the bass gets introduced for the first time, and by the way, this is already a minute and a half in. Then the drums, the brushes, so it takes us a minute and a half. So 1 minute, 30 seconds just to get to the first part of the meat of the arrangement. And then, so the bass and the drums, I mean, bring in this accordion. So here we are. This is the full. So that's sort of the height, if you will. And then everything gets pulled out, and that pad returns, that high ethereal pad. And it's so stripped back. And so if I skip forward a little bit, so there it is. And then it's all stripped back, and then the final, we go back in, the drums come back in, the full arrangement comes in, the whole band comes in, if you will. So yeah, that was what happened.
It's really lovely, really lovely.
I have a class I teach, actually, and I use this as an example of sometime about how to build arrangements in your productions. And this is one of my favorite examples, if not the best example of, to go higher, you have to pull everything out. It's funny because everybody uses this expression, less is more, and people overuse that expression. And I'm like, wait a second, isn't more? How is less more? Like, if I want more money, I'm not going to give my money away so I have less. Like, that doesn't make sense. But, but it does in this context. Yes, less is more, because we pulled everything out, and this has a very powerful and dramatic impact. Now, we just played you the snippet versions, and sort of spoiler alert, oops, we should have done that 10 minutes ago. But, when you're listening to this song, which is, 7 minutes long, and then you get to that point, and, the funny thing is, that point is, just a little over halfway through. And so it has a powerful impact.
This is also reflective of something that we believe in, which is that music should be a wholly immersive and entrancing experience. So the song is 7 or 8 minutes long, and it's operatic in its scope and scale, in the story of an entire family, really, and of the migrant experience. So that means and requires immersion, which is counter to the current so-called wisdom. So big tech and the major music companies want things to be shorter and shorter, 15-second, 20-second clips. So what David's saying just reflects our philosophy as a team, as a band. We're counter to the so-called conventional wisdom, which says you have to make things shorter. And the ideal, apparently, in the music business is 15-second or 20-second TikTok clips or videos. We're going in the other direction. So we believe in total immersion and depth. And if a song is an opera and it requires 8 minutes and this kind of reflection and instrumentation and changing gears to fully affect the story, then so be it. As I said, by contrast, big tech and the music industry, which in effect I think is their underling, wants things to be short and clickable because that frankly sustains their market value. But we're going in the other direction. We want depth, fully immersive experience. We want to create a trance-like, transcendent experience, because what we're talking about, these stories about migrants and is an eternal story. So what my family and David's family went through over the past 100 years, people are experiencing now from Africa and South America and Central America, from East Asia, from the Middle East. These are eternal stories, and they require complete immersion and depth, and that's not something that we'll ever compromise on. So our songs are longer and they're more complex, and the ideas are challenging, but we believe and we know that there's an audience for that.
Saunters by the water on the way to Market Street, a chihuahua in her arms, and the world is at her feet.